On the day I completely broke up with Joaquin, I received a diary from my former arranged marriage partner, which recorded his silent love for me over 9 years. Every word filled with deep affection and heart-wrenching emotion. The last page of the diary read, "By the time you read this diary, I will have already died." I was briefly married to him for a year, and the actual time we spent together was very limited. At that time, even his appearance had become a blur in my memory. For these 9 years, I have been wholeheartedly pursuing Joaquin, and then he became ambiguous with his sister-in-law who lost her husband, which left me utterly exhausted. But it turns out that for 9 years, I was also being watched over with grand and fervent love by another person in an unknown corner. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn to the day my ex-husband first came to propose a marriage. Chapter 1. In the restaurant. I looked at the much younger Joaquin, and when he called Sophia's sister-in-law beside him, I truly confirmed that I had been reborn. Joaquin pushed a plate of peeled shrimp towards me, his voice gentle. "Sister-in-law, you should eat more. If this continues, your body won't be able to handle it." Sophia smiled faintly with red-rimmed eyes. "Tom used to peel shrimp for me like this too. Joaquin's hand resting on the table slightly curled, his eyes filled with sadness and compassion. I looked at the two people sitting across from me and slowly remembered what time it was. I returned to 5 years ago. At this moment, Joaquin's brother had just passed away in a car accident 5 months ago, leaving behind his newlywed wife Sophia. Joaquin lost his parents at the age of 12, and it was his brother who half-raised him. The bond between the two brothers was deep. He was worried that his only sister-in-law would feel despondent living alone in an empty house. So he not only brought her to his place to take care of her but also brought her along every time he went out with me, saying he wanted to help lift her spirits. Joaquin and I were college sweethearts. I pursued him. He was the aloof and proud academic, with an appearance as clear and bright as a fine day. And from the first glance, he struck a chord in my heart. After 4 years of dating, despite my naturally spoiled personality, I was extremely accommodating and tolerant in front of him. While I understood his compassion and sense of responsibility towards my brother's widow, I still felt somewhat uncomfortable and had expressed a slight dissatisfaction to him. His gaze towards me was filled with disappointment and anger. "The sister-in-law is my brother's family, and she is also my family. I have the responsibility and obligation to take care of her during this special time. You should not emulate those lowly people. A dirty heart sees a dirty world, and there is no need for suspicion among family." But to say such resounding words. 5 years later, on the day he proposed to me, it unexpectedly came out that he and the family he spoke of had a 4-year-old son. Calculating the time, it should be 1 month from now. The two crossed the line and went to bed. Perhaps my current sadness towards Sophia seems somewhat indifferent. Joaquin furrowed his brow and reminded me unhappily, "Kelly, we brought sister-in-law out to have fun today to make her happy. Don't sulk. Go help sister-in-law prepare a little sauce. Don't use too much oil. Add more cilantro." I raised my gaze and looked at him for a while. At this moment, he still called her sister-in-law, but soon he would change to calling her Sophia. "Are you frowning? Is that so?" I chuckled softly. "I think my face is quite normal. I really don't know what kind of face would make someone happy. As for the small details, isn't it self-service? Self-service means helping oneself." Joaquin seemed taken aback by my attitude, his tone tinged with a hint of anger. "Kelly, don't be so inconsiderate. This will make sister-in-law misunderstand that we don't welcome her. Now, quickly apologize to sister-in-law. He stared at me with a serious face, his eyes filled with glaring reproach. This expression clearly indicated that he was very angry. In the past, to avoid arguments, I would always immediately surrender and do whatever he said. But at this moment, I simply gazed at him quietly. "Joaquin." Sophia sighed and spoke. "Celine, it's normal for a young girl to have a bit of a temper. You have to be accommodating to her." She then looked at me and said gently, "He just wants to make me happy." He spoke in haste. "I consider Joaquin half a senior, so for my sake, please don't hold it against him. Ah, you have no idea how envious I am of you all." She became a bit sad again, her voice turning choked. A trace of heartache flashed across Joaquin's face as he looked at the woman beside him with restraint. "Sister-in-law, we all hope you can be a little happier." Sophia looked at him with red-rimmed eyes, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. It's actually not difficult to make her happy. I suddenly stood up, breaking the atmosphere of the two people gazing at each other with tearful eyes. Joaquin thought I had given in as usual, pursing his lips and saying, "Go ahead. When you get the condiments, also bring a plate of cantaloupe. Sister-in-law loves to eat it." I smiled slightly. What's there to be happy about eating some melon? I think, rather, if this light bulb, were to disappear immediately, she would be much happier. After saying that, ignoring the astonished faces of the two, I got up and left. "Celine." Behind me came Joaquin's angry voice. I didn't look back and strode out of the restaurant. Chapter 2. The car sped down the road. I couldn't wait to get home, to see one person, because I suddenly remembered. Today is Lucas's first appearance at my house, proposing a marriage to my dad. In that yellowed diary, every word recorded that this was already the 4th year he had silently loved me. And before this, I had never seen him. After parking the car in the yard, I walked towards the foyer with a thud thud thud. From a distance, I saw a man in a black suit sitting in the redwood armchair by the north gate. His hair was thick and black, and his back was broad and upright. A beam of sunlight slanted into the porch, illuminating his side and creating a hazy halo around him. I was momentarily dazed. My dad saw me and looked surprised. "Kelly, why are you back? Didn't you say you would be very late today?" The man's silhouette suddenly stiffened. There was no turning around, no words spoken, not even the slightest change in posture, but I could feel his sudden rigidity. "I'm a bit tired, so I came back early." I slowly walked around, and as I moved, the man's face gradually revealed itself. A smooth jawline, a straight nose, thick eyelashes, and then he suddenly looked up, gazing at me with a pair of deep black eyes. I quietly locked eyes with him. The person before me slowly overlapped with the blurry face in my memory. Looking back through the lens of time and omniscience, I re-examined my ex-husband, with whom I shared a brief 1-year marriage. I only now realized that he is such a handsome and charming man. Yet in my heart, he was merely a shadow bearing the title of husband. In retrospect, there was hardly any significant intersection between us. A few sparse meetings, emotionless conversations, silent coexistence. Even at the moment of signing the divorce, I misspelled his name, just like in the previous life. He appeared suddenly, when my father faced a financial crisis due to a failed investment. Lucas, the youngest successor of the Fu Group, proactively offered to collaborate through a marriage alliance. My dad initially didn't believe it. After all, my company is not even on the same level compared to the massive Fu Group. In the past 2 years, the infighting among the heirs of the Fu Group and the news of the illegitimate son Lucas rising to power with a thunderous approach have been widely circulated. The reason Lucas gave was to enter the traditional industry where my dad's company is located through a marriage alliance. The marriage alliance only requires 1 year, and they can act as a superficial couple. Not long ago, my dad cautiously brought it up to me, but I furiously rejected it. He has spoiled me since I was little and doesn't want to force me. In my previous life, I inadvertently learned about the difficulties my father was facing, and coincidentally, during that time, I was having a quarrel with Joaquin over Sophia, and in a moment of impulse, I agreed to the arranged marriage. Today is Lucas's first visit, and my dad is preparing to refuse him. And originally, I was not supposed to be here. "Dad, this gentleman looks very familiar." I looked at the man in front of me, who was standing still, and said with a smile. Lucas's long eyelashes gently fluttered. "Ah, Kelly, this is Mr. Fu, and this is my daughter Celine." My dad rubbed his hands together and hurriedly introduced us. He slowly stood up, extended his hand towards me, and spoke in a calm and steady voice. "Miss Mu, nice to meet you for the first time." Very composed, very calm. He had the image of a higher-up subtly exuding pressure. But in that diary, he spent a long time recording our first formal meeting. From my clothes to my hairstyle, every word I said, every expression I made, was delicately portrayed in writing. At that moment, his heart surged like a tumultuous sea, almost overflowing. I glanced at his leg. in his tailored trousers. Below the left knee was a prosthetic limb. This is not a secret. It was the price he paid in the brutal power struggle. Yet it was also the greatest source of his insecurity in front of me. He noticed my gaze. His finger trembled imperceptibly, almost unable to retract. I reached out and grasped him, gently yet with some strength. Mr. Fu, nice to meet you. His dark eyes quietly looked at me, then quickly dropped down as he said softly, Miss Mu, I am also very pleased to meet you. Dad cleared his throat and said with difficulty, Mr. Fu, I am truly sorry. Regarding the matter you mentioned, my daughter, Dad, I interrupted him. The marriage candidate you mentioned to me, is it Mr. Fu? Dad tugged at the corner of his mouth and said dryly, Ah, yes. Then I am willing. The two men fell silent in an instant. Dad was stunned, blinking his round eyes. Kelly, you're not, how? Because I feel a strong connection with Mr. Fu. The man standing silently suddenly raised his calm gaze towards me. In that moment, I seemed to see the sea in someone's eyes. Deep blue, tranquil, unfathomable. All right. It's settled then. He lowered his eyes and said softly, after Lucas left. I immediately took the elevator up to the third-floor bedroom, slightly pulled back the curtains, and cast my gaze towards the corner of the nearby path. Under the lush green trees, a black Cullinan was parked by the roadside. The tall figure stood quietly to the side, posture straight yet slightly bowed, as if deeply engrossed in thought. He said that every time he leaves here, he would spend half an hour there, looking at this man who left little mark on my life. Emotions surged within me, recalling that diary, which recorded the journey of a boy spanning 9 years, slowly growing into a man, and that secret yet grand unrequited love. Chapter 3. He said that the first time he met me was on his 19th birthday. He was standing on the edge of a cliff, preparing to jump. In the layers of green along the mountain path below, a brilliant red suddenly appeared. A girl in a red dress joyfully chased after a small white dog. Her skirt fluttered, and her laughter rang clear, echoing through the mountains. He suddenly felt he couldn't let his tainted self dirty such a beautiful scene. The second time they met, he attended the Fu Group's 30th anniversary banquet as Claude's illegitimate son. At that time, he had not yet learned to calmly face the malice filled with schemes. The dignified and elegant Mrs. Fu gently smiled and said, Your whore mother. Half-brothers politely discussed with him. I heard you let someone in the back door when you were bullied. In the repeated humiliating denials, he gradually clenched his teeth and reddened his eyes. They looked at him with smiles, waiting for him to break down and make a fool of himself. Just as the breakdown was about to erupt, a melodious girl's voice pierced through the chaotic fog, ringing in his roaring ears. Hello. I think you look handsome from the side. Very much like Homaru. Can I take a picture of you? He turned his head in a daze and saw a bright smiling face. It was the girl in the red dress from the mountains. He was utterly shocked, because he had always thought that the scene he saw that day was a hallucination born from extreme emotions. The girl's face was charming and sweet, radiating vitality and life. Her eyes sparkled like stars, reflecting a pool of beauty and purity. She tilted her head and smiled brightly at him. That was the first time someone had complimented him without any malice. It was also the first time he truly felt the beauty of the opposite sex. Heart-stopping, completely unguarded. From that day on, a ray of sunlight that should not belong to him seemed to have accidentally seeped into his barren and hopeless life. He realized that there were indeed some vibrant and enchanting existences in the world. He found himself harboring greed. I have no recollection of the 2 encounters he recorded in his diary. I only remembered that when I was 18, my father was at the peak of his career, having invested in a resort, and I often went there to play during the summer vacation. I did indeed raise a white poodle. I was infatuated with the cool and aloof Homaru. Later on, he entered the university I was attending. As for the process, he simply mentioned, I paid a price. At that time, I was chasing after Joaquin all day long. I lost to Joaquin, who was the closing speaker for the opposing team in an interschool debate competition, and I was instantly captivated by his calm and rational charm. Back then, I was a confident and reckless person. If I liked someone, I would just say it. If I had my eye on someone, I would go after them. My friends mocked me for being a girl pursuing a boy, and I proudly said with my head held high, I just like those who don't like me. Those who like me. I am still unwilling. This sentence once spread widely, so widely that it reached Lucas's ears, and at that time he gently wrote in his diary, I am on the mountains and seas. You are in the mist. He has never truly appeared in front of me, but it seems that his world is all about me. He knows I bought new clothes, got a new hairstyle, and changed my phone case. He knows I got second place in the speech competition, but failed in math. He knows I love the old ones bean skewers in Southwest Village and enjoy fresh squeezed orange juice. He says he is timid, weak, and self-abased, like a mouse in a dark corner, both self-loathing and soberly sinking. Even when we meet face to face, he doesn't dare to truly look me in the eye. Chapter 4. He has tried to walk up to me. In the second year since Lucas was recognized by the Fu family, Claude accidentally discovered that his son, whom he didn't care much about, possessed rare business acumen and decisiveness, and began to try to cultivate him. As the situation gradually improved, my heart began to harbor a glimmer of hope. That day, he bought a bouquet of fiery red roses, got a new haircut, and nervously prepared to meet me. On his way out, he encountered a group of young girls, who were playfully pushing the one in the center, blushing as they confessed their feelings to him. His half-brother happened to drive by. He rolled down the window, smiled, and greeted him, glancing at the group of girls, and said slowly, Are you in a relationship? You can't hide the fact that your mom died of AIDS from her. The group of young girls looked at him, filled with fear, pity, and awkwardness. The girl who confessed awkwardly found an excuse and ran away without looking back. At that moment, he suddenly realized something. He could never stand in front of me openly. That day, he struck for the first time, breaking his brother's nose. As punishment, he was confined for a month. Later, he only secretly placed an umbrella down when I was caught in the rain outside the teaching building, then looked at me and smiled, laughing along with me. When I sat under the tree waiting for Joaquin at night, resting my face on my hands, he quietly kept me company. On my birthday, he silently set off a nameless firework outside my dorm window. In his diary, he expressed countless things I had never known in a deeply affectionate manner. I feel both sentimental and confused. The girl he depicted in his writing seemed like me yet not me. That girl is so beautiful and so happy, as if she were the sun hanging high in the sky, unattainable. What right do I have? What truly allowed me to merge myself with her were two things. In my sophomore year, while I was waiting for Joaquin under the experimental building at night, I ran into a few migrant workers who were repairing the playground on campus. They were drunk and tried to grope me, intending to assault me. I shouted for help, but the experimental building was at the end of the playground, and there were hardly any people around. Just when I was terrified and desperate, a tall guy in a black hoodie suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and without saying a word, he came up and threw a fierce punch. Although the last few people ran away, the boy was also injured, and a lot of his blood splattered on the ground. I cried and wanted to take him to the hospital, but he silently wiped the blood off his face, glanced at me quietly, pulled on his hat, and turned to leave. Joaquin and I once posted online at school to search for this brave boy, but we never found him. But it turns out, it was Lucas, and another thing stirred quite a wave in my heart. That winter of graduation, a once-in-a-century blizzard struck, with snow accumulating to knee-deep, paralyzing the city's traffic. I have a high fever of 40 degrees and am unconscious, lying in the school hospital, urgently needing to be transferred. When everyone was at a loss, I felt someone lift me up with great strength. The school is 5 kilometers away from the nearest large hospital, and I vaguely knew that the person was carrying me, trudging through the snow, stepping deep and shallow. The sound of the wind and the sound of breathing continued for a long time. When I woke up, the face I saw was Joaquin. I weakly asked, "Did you carry me here?" He was both excited and fearful, gently holding me, repeatedly saying, "It's good that you're okay. It's good that you're okay." Later, the nurse said that my condition that day was very critical. If I hadn't been rushed in for emergency treatment, my life would have been in jeopardy. "Your boyfriend is really good to you." With such heavy snow, It takes a step-by-step effort to move. And he carried you. This journey must have cost him half his life. I was extremely touched. Perhaps it was from that moment on that I no longer saw Joaquin as just a boyfriend, but as someone I truly recognized as my partner for life. I thought that, in that situation, he did not give up on me. In the future, I will also never easily give up on him. But it turns out that the person who carried me through the wind and snow, on the deserted street, never stopped for a moment. It's not Joaquin. It's Lucas. What is unimaginable is that the person who has been writing these gentle and delicate words for several years is simultaneously experiencing a brutal and bizarre struggle for succession. His father, whose interests outweighed familial ties, inexplicably suffered a heart attack and died naked on top of Xiao Jinke. Another brother, also a bastard, was reported for embezzlement and claimed into prison. He was involved in a man-made car accident that broke one of his legs. All of this was actually just briefly mentioned in my diary. In the end, it was only briefly mentioned. I finally stand in this position, as if I can reach out and touch the moonlight. So, he indulged the little beast that had been lurking in his heart for many years, standing in front of me in the form of an arranged marriage. When I received this diary, I was taking a taxi to the airport. At that time, I was still trapped in the blow of being betrayed by Joaquin. To escape his entanglement, I decided to flee to another city. Just as I stepped out, a beautifully packaged box was delivered to me by a courier. I opened this diary while in the taxi. The car crashed straight into the concrete bridge pier to avoid a bus with a brake failure as it reached the overpass. Before I died, I saw the blood-stained diary being flipped to the last page by the wind. There was a line of text on it. When you read this diary, I will already be dead. Chapter 5. I turned off my phone and lay at home for 2 days, looking back on my past life and this life. I cried once and then laughed once. On the third day, I got out of bed. I opened my phone. Joaquin had only sent one WeChat message. Simple and cold. Are you trying to break up like this? I replied, okay, let's break up. After speaking, I threw away my phone and let out a long sigh. Looking at the reflection of myself in the mirror, 5 years younger, I felt a transformation from the inside out. Gazing at the bright sunlight outside the window, I decided to find Lucas. He spends most of his time in the top floor office of the Fu building, separated by life and death, love and parting. I have an impulse that feels like it's about to burst from my chest. I want to go and truly love this lonely yet deeply affectionate man. I didn't finish reading the last part of the diary, so I don't know what happened to him later or what caused his death. However, the heavens wouldn't let me be reborn for no reason. This time, I will not die. Lucas won't either. Chapter 6. Standing under the Fu building, I felt somewhat out of place. Although I had been the nominal chairwoman, I had never been here before. The receptionist showed a hint of mockery when she learned I was looking for Lucas. The chairman never sees outsiders. Please leave, madam. Frowning, I got my dad to give me Lucas's phone number. Just as it rang once, I heard a steady voice from inside. Miss Mu. Hello. I wasn't surprised at all that he knew my phone number. Mr. Fu, I am now in the lobby downstairs of your company and would like to see you. There was suddenly silence on the phone for 2 seconds. Please wait. A tall figure in a black shirt walked out of the elevator with long strides a minute later. As Lucas walked towards me, his expression was stern, and he only glanced at me from a distance before looking down. Mr. Fu, I happened to pass by and wanted to visit your company. I wonder if you are available now, I said with a bright smile. He stared at me blankly and said softly, I am available. After a pause, he added, I can show you around. We stepped into the private elevator, stunned by the ceremony at the front desk. In the enclosed space, I felt the deliberately suppressed breath of the man beside me, his chest slightly rising and falling. Unconsciously, I cleared my throat. The elevator doors opened, and a beautiful, intelligent woman immediately came forward. They said you suddenly left the meeting. I was still worried. She saw me behind her, paused for 2 seconds, and asked, Chairman, who is this guest? Lucas glanced at me, seeming a bit hesitant about how to introduce me, and finally just said, he is my assistant. Pour a glass of orange juice in my office. The assistant's gaze fell on me with suspicion and vigilance. As we brushed past each other, I smiled at her friendly. Hello, my last name is Mu, and I am his fiancé. The assistant's pupils widened slightly. Then he chuckled softly. This lady really loves to joke. She clearly believed she knew enough about Lucas. Lucas suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around. She is not joking. Miss Mu is my fiancé. He assistant. From now on her words are my words. Do you understand? The assistant showed an incredulous expression, biting his lower lip lightly, and said softly, Understood. Chairman. Lucas, the office is designed in a famous style. Simple yet sophisticated. The first thing he did upon entering was to turn off the air conditioning. We sat facing each other on the sofa. He slightly lowered his head, his long legs slightly apart. Yet he remained silent. If it weren't for having read that diary, I would definitely think he was aloof and distant. Given my personality, he would never take the initiative to show kindness. But now, I look at this man and speak softly. I came today thinking that since we are going to get married, we should get to know each other first. Mr. Fu, what do you think? He nodded. Can I call you Lucas? Sure. Then you can call me Celine or Kelly. My family all call me Kelly. Okay. He really spoke very little, as if he was not good with words, and even somewhat dull. I found it hard to imagine how he ended up in this position. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. His lips pressed together, and his long, slender fingers crossed. Due to the force, the knuckles turned slightly white. My heart softened, and I asked again, Lucas, have you eaten? Chapter 7. He was taken aback for a moment. No, I don't really eat lunch. In recent years, in order to maintain his energy and a clear mind, he basically doesn't eat lunch, and as a result, he often suffers from stomach pains. I tilted my head slightly and said kindly, just in time. I haven't eaten either. Should we order takeout and eat together? He passed away in middle age, not due to an accident, but from illness. Given that he was aware of his impending death, it was highly likely due to health reasons. He quietly blinked. Okay. I eagerly took out my phone to place an order, not knowing what he liked to eat. I ordered a few items from this place and a few from that place, and after a good while of fussing, I finally placed the order. When I looked up, I saw him sitting quietly beside me, not even looking at his phone, with a face that shows no expression. The domineering CEO somehow makes me feel a little obedient. The assistant knocked and entered, placing 2 glasses of freshly squeezed orange juice on the table. Thank you, I nodded. She shot me a glance, said nothing, and walked straight out. Lucas suddenly spoke, assistant. She turned around, raising a pair of misty eyes to look at Lucas, seemingly filled with grievance and stubbornness. How long have you been my assistant? She pressed her lips together and lifted her head. Since the first day you joined the company, until the end of this month. It will be exactly 3 years. Starting tomorrow, you will be assigned to the administration department. The tone left no room for negotiation. The assistant was taken aback and asked in disbelief, why? Lucas furrowed his brow slightly but still answered, I'm getting married, and all the female assistants will be replaced. The assistant's face turned pale, and he stood there in a daze for a while before finally stammering out a few words, understood. I watched her figure as she left. Is your assistant okay? Lucas handed me the orange juice and said softly, as long as the money is enough. Nothing is a problem. His actions were considerate, but his words and expressions were cold and indifferent. There was a kind of tearing contrast. I just thought he was well behaved. I shook my head. After taking a sip of orange juice, my eyes lit up. What kind of orange is this? It's both fragrant and sweet. He subtly curled the corners of his lips. This variety is one that I specially reserved from a mountain in Gannan. Having someone cultivate it specifically, the annual yield is not much. Do you like to drink it? I love it. I nodded, saying, from now on, even if it's just to drink your orange juice, I have to come here often. Sure, come by any time. When he said this, his eyes were shining brightly. When 2 secretaries brought in several colorful takeout bags, their faces were filled with disbelief. and when they heard Lucas instruct them to place the takeout on that precious mahogany desk, their pupils were even more shocked. In any case, that day, I and Lucas feasted on a pile of cheap takeout boxes in his office, which could be considered a work of art. I ate with exceptional enjoyment. In the last 2 years of my previous life, I was exhausted from being trapped in the emotional quagmire of Joaquin and had lost much of my joy and passion for life. And now, my life has a chance for rebirth. I am utterly certain that this man in front of me is someone I can completely trust and rely on. This sense of happiness in life and the feeling of being protected even makes my eyes slightly warm. Lucas is sitting across from me, eating slowly but with great focus. It's as if he is savoring not just the food, but every fleeting moment. Even as the oil from the takeout box slowly seeps into the redwood grain, he doesn't spare it a glance. I curved my eyes into a smile and said to Lucas, "Is it okay if I come here to eat every day for a while?" He raised his gaze and met my eyes. Okay. Chapter 8. For the next month, I visited Lucas every few days. No matter whether I had notified him in advance, he was always there. In front of the office's floor-to-ceiling windows, a delicate dining table for two appeared. He and I sat facing each other, sometimes eating and talking. Gradually, we became familiar with each other, and he spoke more. I thought he was dull and not good with words, but in fact, it was quite the opposite. He always answered my questions with precision, offering unique perspectives. When someone called for instructions, he issued commands decisively and clearly. When listening to others speak, he would slightly press his lips into a straight line, his long eyelashes occasionally fluttering, appearing calm and focused. I am someone who is attracted to looks, and I increasingly enjoy staring at his face. I always thought I was being discreet, until one time, I was staring at him intently while he was on a call. Despite the serious content, the corners of his lips subtly lifted. It suddenly dawned on me that he knew I was watching him. I felt my face flush with embarrassment. When I looked up, I collided with a pair of bright, fiery eyes. Lucas does not shy away from me while handling work. After a month of being together, I concluded his death was not caused by human hands. The entire company respects him wholeheartedly and treats him with utmost respect. Former rivals have been completely subdued by him. Fu Madam and his several half-brothers have long been sent to a small, unknown country in northern Europe. There is no darkness lurking. There is no revenge return. He is the absolute ruler of his world. Eliminating these external factors, only physical reasons remain. So, I made an excuse to have a premarital checkup and took him to the hospital, preparing to give him a full-body examination. While waiting for Lucas outside the ultrasound room, I unexpectedly ran into Joaquin. I saw him first. He sat alone in the corner, his brow furrowed, and his gaze somewhat vacant. I muttered a curse under my breath and turned to walk away. He lifted his head, and our eyes met directly. Celine, he suddenly stood up, a flicker of panic crossing his face. "What are you doing here? Is the hospital your family's? Can't I come?" I said coldly. Joaquin paused for 2 seconds, quickly returning to his usual cold demeanor. "Have you had enough of your antics this past month?" I frowned. "Trouble? Who is causing trouble?" He looked at me displeased. "You blocked me, and whenever I go to your house, you always say you're not home. Kelly, throwing a tantrum should have its limits. If you keep this up, we might really be done for." I laughed. "Joaquin, weren't we already done? Do you want me to remind you? A month ago, we broke up." He stared at me for a while, and for some reason, his voice suddenly softened. "Kelly, I've thought it over. I was also wrong last time. I didn't consider your feelings. I actually went to your house to apologize. Sophia is checking inside. Kelly, I'm really tired right now." His expression at this moment was somewhat complex, weary, fragile, and seemed to carry a hint of confusion. My heart stirred. Joaquin is now calling her Sophia. Could it be that they have already? What illness does Sophia have? I asked with a frown. His gaze flickered slightly, and his expression suddenly became a bit unnatural, a cold. "Kelly." Behind me, Lucas called my name, walking over with a heavy gaze. I hurriedly asked him, what was the result? His expression eased a bit. "It's fine. Everything is normal." "Who is he?" Joaquin's scrutinizing gaze fell on Lucas. Lucas glanced at him expressionlessly and said, "Me? I'm her fiancé." "Impossible." Joaquin furrowed his brow and quickly realized, "Kelly, you're angry with me and Sophia. So you deliberately found a man to provoke me, right?" I was so amused that I simply reached out and took Lucas's hand, saying loudly, "He is my fiancé, and we will be getting married soon. His words are my words. Understand, Joaquin?" Joaquin looked at my hand with a dark expression, his voice suppressing anger. "So, did you betray me?" His voice suddenly rose, and the people around turned to look. I scoffed. "Joaquin, let me remind you once again. We broke up a month ago. Even if I kissed someone else in front of you now, you have no right to blame me. As for betrayal, who exactly betrayed whom? Joaquin?" I stared at him, my gaze sarcastic and cold. He felt my gaze tighten his eyes, as if someone had stepped on his tail, revealing a hint of guilt and confusion. I understood and smiled coldly. Sure enough, they were already in bed. A sense of annoyance suddenly rose in my heart, and I didn't want to say another word to him. I looked up at the man beside me, Lucas. "Let's go." Lucas seemed to suddenly wake up from his daze and said gently, "Okay, let's go." I held Lucas's hand and walked all the way to the elevator. His palm was large and warm, giving a feeling of gentle embrace, having witnessed Joaquin and Sophia's illicit beginning. At this moment, I strongly desired to be affirmed, protected, and cherished. I don't want to let go. Lucas didn't let go either. He seemed to possess a kind of power. Standing next to him made one instinctively feel a sense of dependence, as if everything in the world could be resolved and was under control. My heart gradually felt steady and at peace. While waiting for the elevator, I overheard two cleaners gossiping around the corner. "Do you know what illness that guy who was speaking loudly in the B ultrasound room brought that girl in at midnight yesterday?" "I know. It was a ruptured corpus luteum. Just look at this young couple. Why do they have to be so intense about it? They are not a couple. A mistress? That woman looks older than the man, but I heard that man still calls her sister-in-law. TSK. The elevator doors opened, and we walked in. Lucas paused for a moment, tightening his palm. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." He is well aware of my past with Joaquin. Clearly, Joaquin betrayed me, and in an extremely explosive and disgusting way. I let out a faint sigh. It's still a bit disgusting. I wish there was a place to purify my body and mind. Lucas looked down at me and suddenly said, "There is indeed such a place." Chapter 9. He drove me to an elegant villa in the suburbs. The tree-lined path shaded by lush greenery, the walls covered in green vines, was tranquil and romantic. I fell in love at first sight. As I walked through the garden, past the foyer, and pushed open the glass door to the backyard, I gasped. What I saw was a vast expanse of fiery red roses, cascading down the hillside, beautiful like a scene from a dream. I rushed over with joy, my laughter soaring. He stood in the corridor watching me, his eyes filled with a smile. Lucas told me that this rose garden was planted by his own hands. When he feels troubled, breaks down, or is lonely, he comes here alone, weeding, putting up curtains, making a wooden chair. This is his paradise away from the world. Why plant red roses? Because they remind me of a young girl's red dress. Captivating at first sight, my heart warmed, and I almost wanted to throw myself into his arms. While touring the villa, I discovered many small designs arranged for the lady of the house. The powder blue curtains, the beautiful vanity, and the walk-in closet filled with various designer bags. I widened my eyes, carefully examining each bag one by one. Each of these bags costs as much as a house. "If you like it, we can live here after we get married," Lucas said softly from the side. In my previous life, I had never been here. When discussing marriage, he seemed to mention that he had prepared a villa in the suburbs, but I politely declined, saying I preferred to live in the city. Our new apartment is a spacious flat in the city center. Yet, even for that spacious flat, I have only visited a handful of times. At this moment, I looked at the slightly anxious man in front of me and smiled brightly. "Okay, I really like it. We can live here after we get married." His eyes suddenly sparkled, and the corners of his eyes curved up. I stared at him in a daze. "Lucas, you look great when you smile. Can you smile more in the future?" As soon as those words were spoken, the atmosphere seemed to change suddenly. The walk-in closet was relatively narrow, and a ray of sunset light barely illuminated us as we stood close enough to feel each other's warm breath. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly. I lowered my head, my face a bit flushed, just about to say a few words to brush it off when I heard his voice from above. "Okay." I smiled. He always said it was good. It was as if he couldn't say the word no. We stayed in the villa for 3 days. Everything you could possibly need is here. A full set of La Mer dresses, shoes, sleepwear, accessories, and even the milk in the fridge is the freshest available. In the morning, he would pick dew-covered roses to knock on my door. With my hair tousled and eyes still bleary from sleep, what I saw was a face beaming with a smile. I suddenly opened my mouth while brushing my teeth in the bathroom. He really is obedient. In just 3 days of being together, I got to know a whole new Lucas. He is very good at cooking. A piece of steak sizzled and the aroma wafted out, making my fingers itch with desire. He can make milk tea from scratch. We sat across from each other on the terrace, surrounded by fields of roses, with a small fire stove in front of us, using rock sugar to stir-fry the tea leaves. He moved leisurely and skillfully. He can catch fish with his bare hands in the river, rolling up his sleeves to reveal his strong muscular arms. He bent down in the river, and suddenly, in that moment, he held a lively, wriggling fish in his hand. I jumped up on the shore, clapping my hands in joy. He looked at me and smiled through the shimmering water. At dusk, he built a small fire pit by the river with branches, roasting fish while softly recounting his childhood. My mother loved the wrong person when she was young, losing both love and money, and later entered the nightlife. She met Claude in the nightlife, without any emotional foundation, and gave birth to me solely because she needed someone to help her in her old age. I grew up under her curses and the disdain of outsiders. They said I was dirty and unworthy of living in this world. After starting school, I began to suffer various forms of bullying, but I survived. Later, she contracted AIDS, making my life even more difficult. That day, I finally exploded and had a huge argument with her, questioning why she chose to degrade herself and why she gave birth to me. When I returned home that evening, no one was there. The neighbors said my mom had gotten drunk during the day and somehow fell from upstairs, dying on the spot. She had already been taken away. It was I who drove her to death. Later, I found her diary, which contained a graduation photo of my mother wearing a cap and gown, her smile bright and pure. There was also a paternity test, dated shortly after I was born. I later found out that my biological father is Claude. Now you know, my past is filthy, dark, and unbearable. Celine, I am giving you one chance, just this once. If you can't accept it and regret it, tell me now. In the twilight of the night, his voice was very low. From beginning to end, he just stared at the flickering flames, not once looking up at me. After saying that, he remained motionless, as if waiting for some kind of judgment to arrive. I slowly shifted my body, leaning a little closer to him. His eyelashes trembled slightly, like the wings of a butterfly, reflecting the firelight. Brilliant and enchanting. Lucas, it's a bit chilly at night. Can I hug my fiancé? The fish in my hand fell into the fire. He stiffly opened his arms and cautiously embraced me. Belonging solely to him, the overwhelming breath of the mountains and fierce winds surrounded me completely. His strong and broad chest, yet it could no longer stop trembling. Warm liquid dripped onto my face, drop by drop. I quietly waited for his emotional outburst. No one understands this man before me better than I do. He walks alone in the darkness, willing to shatter himself for that faint glimmer of light. I understand his surging emotions, unattainable and untouchable, boundless loneliness. I am incredibly fortunate to be the woman who is passionately loved by him. In my previous life, I had an on and off relationship with Joaquin that lasted 9 years. Countless times, I fought and had cold wars because of the unclear boundaries between him and Sophia. I transformed from a girl who dared to love and hate, who was generous and carefree, into a hesitant and indecisive failure. In fact, by that time, I could no longer distinguish whether all those years were spent unable to leave him because of love or stubbornly seeking a conclusion. Those who lack the courage to let go have finally faced the backlash. At the proposal scene, as the big screen played our 9 years of warm moments, an unexpected image suddenly appeared: Joaquin and Sophia, with a child who bore a striking resemblance to him. In the park, by the seaside, at the amusement park, warm and beautiful, as everyone stood in shock. The door swung open, and the child rushed in to hug Joaquin, crying sorrowfully, "Daddy, don't you want me and Mommy anymore?" Behind him stood Sophia, silently shedding tears. At that moment, Joaquin's face turned pale. The three of them embraced tightly, while I stood aside, like a malicious supporting character who had torn apart a happy family. Now, after spending just a month with Lucas, I can clearly feel that the bright and soaring version of myself has returned. It's not just a rebirth of the body. My heart has been reborn as well. The sunset is immersed in an orange sea, and I am lost in sincere love. So, Lucas, I have come back to love you. Chapter 10. The wedding date was quickly set. I made up for the regret of not participating last time. I went with Lucas to see the venue, try on dresses, and choose favors. The staff quietly said to me, "Miss Moo, your husband loves you so much. Whenever you speak, he just keeps looking at you, his gaze never leaving." I looked at Lucas, who was trying on a suit, and smiled, saying, "Yeah, he really loves me." Lucas seemed to sense my gaze and instinctively turned his head, smiling at me. The white suit made his smiling eyes bright and dazzling like stars. I was momentarily dazzled. That night, we had dinner at a romantic French restaurant. The pianist stopped playing and asked all the couples while holding a bright red rose, "Who is willing to prove their love?" All the couples raised their hands, including me. Lucas was seriously helping me serve soup with his head down. The pianist presented a rose in front of me, and we were invited onto the stage. I bit the rose in my mouth and looked up at him. His eyes were warm and gentle, accommodating all my whims. As Canon began to play, I removed the rose and stood on my tiptoes to kiss his lips. His eyes suddenly widened. I pulled away at once, still feeling a bit shy. The pianist announced that our table's bill was waived. As we stepped down to applause, Lucas seemed a bit dazed. After dinner, when he drove me home, he still seemed off. Her eyes stared straight ahead, her lips slightly pursed, speaking as if her mind were elsewhere. When we arrived at my neighborhood, we got out of the car and walked inside against the cool breeze. He occasionally turned his head to look at me, wanting to say something but hesitating. I was puzzled. "What's wrong?" He rubbed his brow, seeming a bit troubled. "That was my first kiss." I was taken aback. So, the man stopped in his tracks and turned around. "That doesn't count." As soon as he finished speaking, he cupped my face in his hands and kissed me. At first, it was cautious, a mere taste. I felt like I was leaning against a scorching furnace, hearing his chest thundering like a drum. Breathing lightly, I unconsciously raised my hand slowly, resting it on his waist. He paused for a moment, as if receiving some kind of silent permission, and suddenly kissed me fiercely, advancing deeper, with a blazing light flickering in his eyes. "Why aren't you coming in?" Dad peeked his head through the door, but didn't finish his sentence. Bang! The door was slammed shut with a force that was as swift as lightning. That night, the stars shone brightly in the summer sky, accompanied by the chirping of cicadas. I was kissed by Lucas until I almost fainted. Chapter 11. From that day on, it was as if Lucas had flipped a switch. He became uncontrollable when it came to kissing. In the top floor office, he would suddenly lift me by the waist and pin me against the desk, burying his head in kisses. While sitting on the sofa selecting wedding plans, he turned his head to stare at my lips, his gaze inexplicably obscure, and before I knew it, we were kissing. While driving on the road, we were having a good conversation when he suddenly pulled over. I asked what was wrong, but he didn't answer. Instead, he slowly unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned in to kiss me. I can't help but wonder, is this still the man who would shy away from my gaze with just a glance? He is simply self-taught. In my previous life, we did not live together after getting married. We would only appear together as a couple at important banquets. I would link my arm with his, but he remained expressionless. When I spoke to him, he responded indifferently. In my memory, he was a dull, uninteresting, and extremely cold person. On the day of our divorce, I genuinely breathed a sigh of relief, and he wrote 3 words in his diary, enough already. These days, I am slowly getting to know the real Lucas. He has an exceptionally high IQ, a meticulous mind, and a unique perspective. He actually has a wide range of interests, adaptable to both action and tranquility. He enjoys astronomy, likes history, excels at rock climbing, and is obsessed with Go. And on top of that, he is infatuated with me. However, the shadows of childhood and the battle with the Fu family have profoundly affected him. At certain moments, he is extremely insecure, utterly vulnerable, holding me tightly without saying a word. I know he is afraid of the unpredictability of fate, afraid that I will leave, afraid that everything will vanish into thin air. Occasionally, I am also troubled by the fact that he died in his past life. But I comfort myself. Since my rebirth, I have made so many different choices. The butterfly effect must have had an impact. The outcome may have fundamentally changed long ago. Chapter 12. That night, Lucas lingered in front of my house for a long time, reluctant to leave, when Joaquin suddenly appeared. He has lost a lot of weight and looked at me with a heartbroken expression. I remained silent. This man, who has loomed over my 9 years of youth. At this moment, I couldn't even be bothered to say a word of blame or disdain. Celine, you really have a cruel heart. 4 years of feelings, and you can just let go so quickly to be with another man. You don't respect me, nor do you respect yourself. Am I really that unforgivable? I just defended Sophia in front of you, but you know I was only trying to make her happy. I still couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. I turned my head to look at him and slowly said, Joaquin, does your idea of making her happy include sleeping with her? Joaquin's pupils suddenly constricted, and then anger surged across his face. Celine, how could you say something so outrageous? But you could do it, right? I didn't want to waste any more time and impatiently interrupted him. Was that the first time you two slept together when you ran into each other at the hospital? His face turned pale, and his lips trembled slightly. The first time was so intense that it caused your beloved sister-in-law's corpus luteum to rupture? Last week, you went to the hospital and confirmed that she was pregnant, right? What was the outcome of your discussion? Keep the child? Give Sophia a mistress's identity? Is she willing? After 4 years of our relationship, you betrayed me in such a disgusting way. Your brother passed away only 6 months ago, and you're having an affair with your own sister-in-law. Joaquin, you speak of righteousness and morality, yet behind the scenes, you have done so many filthy and despicable things. How dare you show your face in front of me? Joaquin's face, under my relentless questioning, turned pale inch by inch. The cicadas suddenly roared and screeched, as if expressing strong dissatisfaction with the filth of this world. Don't say it. Please don't say it. He slowly crouched down, covering his head with both hands, his shoulders trembling uncontrollably. I stood on the steps, coldly watching him. Some information I learned from Lucas. He casually placed a private investigator's report on his desk. I know he did it on purpose. He didn't want me to look back. After a long while, Joaquin looked up, his eyes red, and said softly, I miss you so much, but I can't bring myself to face it. That night I was drunk and mistook her for you. I blame you for being so heartless, and I just wanted to punish you in that way. So I went crazy. I didn't even recognize myself. It was only later that I realized how irreparable my actions were. I never expected that. Sophia in that situation, she would end up pregnant. The doctor said that if she terminated the pregnancy, she might never be able to have children again. She cried and begged me, saying it was just to leave a seed for my brother. He painfully closed his eyes. I helplessly agreed to her. During that time, I was in so much pain that I wished I could kill myself. But I didn't love her. Kelly, I loved you. Can you? He suddenly stopped, his crimson eyes fixed directly on me. You know you can't say it out loud, right? I scoffed. Joaquin, there is no possibility for us. Let's go. Don't show up here again and dirty the path home for me. Joaquin's eyes were dull and lifeless, murmuring, but I really love you. It's my fault. I'll go plead with Sophia to have the baby aborted. In the hazy night, Sophia walked out from the shadows with red eyes. She slowly helped Joaquin up from the ground, looking at me with a mix of grievance and anger. Celine, you don't have to feel that we owe you anything. No matter what Joaquin and I did, you had already broken up at that time, right? Besides, weren't you also getting to know someone new? Don't be too double-standard in life. I admit that I haven't controlled my feelings well during this time, but Joaquin is not at fault. He is a responsible good man. He just doesn't want me to never be able to become a mother. But you don't cherish him enough. Is he really that unimportant to you? How could you ever think that I wanted to compete with you for him? For me, just being able to silently watch him be happy is enough. I could even give up this child. Sophia spoke with conviction, each word defending Joaquin. She was accustomed to shaping the image of a gentle woman who understood profound principles, portraying their struggles as her sacrifice and Joaquin's responsibility, while saying they won't compete. They are actually doing it to compete. I chuckled coldly in my heart and slowly spoke. Sister-in-law, I suddenly feel that what you said is very right. Actually, during this time, I have also been thinking about Joaquin. I just mind that you had a relationship and got pregnant. If you are truly willing to terminate the pregnancy, I can consider giving Joaquin a chance. Joaquin, upon hearing this, stepped forward suddenly and asked earnestly, Kelly, are you serious? Sophia was taken aback, a hint of panic on her face. But you already have a fiancé? I sighed. I'm only in this marriage to save my dad's company. It's all just a game. How could I possibly let go of my 4 years with Joaquin just like that? Sophia looked pale, biting her lower lip, unable to say a word. I was feeling a great sense of joy when I suddenly heard a faint sound of footsteps, gradually fading away. From near to far, I squinted into the distance. A car's headlights flashed at the end of the path. The night suddenly brightened, and then it returned to calm in an instant. I suddenly realized it was Lucas. He is used to quietly staying for a while before leaving every time he departs from here. So, he heard everything I just said. I immediately turned around and rushed into the house, quickly grabbed the car keys, and ran towards the car. Joaquin called out to me. I turned a deaf ear. I only felt an overwhelming sense of panic in my heart. That man, who can rationally analyze everything and keep it all under control, is sensitive and timid only when it comes to me. Those words I just said were clearly a misunderstanding. Yet he didn't even dare to confront me about it. I drove directly to the villa. Sure enough, Lucas's car was parked at the door. I got out of the car and ran towards the villa, not caring that my shoes had fallen off. The room was very dark and quiet, with only a faint light shining from the second floor. Barefoot, he crossed the hall, went upstairs, and walked to the master bedroom door, where he immediately saw Lucas. Under the warm yellow lamp, he quietly leaned against the head of the bed. His head was tilted back, his face covered by a wine-red garment. It was the satin nightgown I wore last time. I silently watched him for a while, then walked over step by step. Standing in front of him, I reached out to pull off the nightgown. The moment he opened his eyes, I leaned down and kissed him. He seemed unable to believe it, staring at me with a dazed look. I straddled his legs, slowly unbuttoning his shirt, slightly raised collarbones, a sturdy chest, rising and falling abdominal muscles, revealing just a bit in the dim light. Enticing. I disregarded everything and continued to unbuckle his belt. He trembled as he held my hand. My legs will scare you. I bent down, kissing my way along, kissing his prosthetic limb. His eyes were red, his voice hoarse to the point of being unrecognizable. Kelly, do you know what you are doing? I straightened up and commanded, don't ask. Love me. That night, Lucas treated me like a queen. He submitted to me, revering me as his guiding principle. He gave his all, solely to care for my feelings. He kept calling my name in my ear. Kelly, Kelly, he breathed softly, turning and pleasing me, knowing my desires and understanding my needs. I felt as if I were trapped in a chaotic yet weightless cloud, swaying with the wind. fulfilled and content. It feels like lying in a clear, gentle stream, with soft spring water caressing every inch of my body, experiencing the most sincere baptism from the inside out. In the air, I see one brilliant firework after another blooming. I can only feel the overwhelming beauty, completely forgetting myself. I only remembered that when I fell into a drowsy sleep, it was already dimly bright outside the window. When I opened my eyes the next day, it was already afternoon. There was no one beside me, the white gauze curtain gently swaying, and in front of the window was a large bouquet of vibrant, dripping roses. When I got out of bed, my whole body felt like it had fallen apart, making me grimace for a while. I didn't see Lucas downstairs, but I knew he was there, because there was an exquisite fruit platter on the dining table. And in the kitchen, there was a pot of soup bubbling with steam, fragrant and rich. In a good mood, I decided to take a stroll through the rose garden. When I returned with a large bouquet of roses, I unexpectedly ran into a tall figure standing at the door like a statue. He stood there with his head down, motionless, looking lonely and dejected, like an abandoned child. I called out in confusion, "Lucas." He suddenly turned around, quickly crossed 2 steps, and pulled me into his embrace. My body, however, was gently trembling. I was stunned. "Lucas, what happened?" His warm breath brushed against my ear, shifting from rapid to gentle, as he seemed to finally calm down. "I thought you had left," he said hoarsely. I couldn't help but laugh, gently patting his back. "I went to pick flowers. Besides, my car is still parked outside. Didn't you see it?" I forgot. I felt both touched and sad in my heart. He is such a sharp and cunning person. How could he not realize this? Clearly, he is flustered by his own concern. What I said last night was out of anger at them for saying it on purpose. I suddenly felt a bit wronged. "You didn't even ask me a single question before leaving. If I hadn't discovered you, wouldn't I have been unjustly wronged?" He cupped my face in his hands, his gaze intensely fixed on me. "I'm sorry, Kelly. Sometimes, I am very cowardly. Kelly, promise me that no matter what happens in the future, you won't suddenly leave me." My eyes have become moist. "Okay, I promise you." Chapter 13. I moved to the villa. Lucas is becoming increasingly familiar with me, starting to control the rhythm effortlessly. He is like a general conquering lands, often forcing me to sob and plead for surrender. Yet he only sighs softly, kissing away the tears that spill from the corners of my eyes, whispering gentle reassurances, yet still galloping forward, unwavering. The wedding arrived as scheduled. Lucas photographed a 12-carat diamond ring, named Admiration. Before the ceremony, I was in the VIP room arranging the wedding dress. A strange number called. I answered, and heard Joaquin's voice. "Kelly, are you really going to marry him?" I didn't want to respond to him, was about to hang up, but then I heard him speak again. "Don't you want to know how Lucas died?" My blood ran cold, and I froze in place, taking a long time to say, You. His voice was tender. "Kelly, it's me. I've come back too. I missed you so much during the days you weren't here. Can you come see me?" I said sharply, "I don't care who you are. I'm getting married today. Please don't disturb me." He chuckled softly and said to himself, "You saw that diary at the scene." And later, I looked into this infatuated man and found out he was already dead. What a pity. He was clearly a billionaire. "Kelly, I came back for you. If you come to find me now, I will tell you how to save him. You know, in this world, only I know the truth." Thoughts raced through my mind. He was right. The only one who knew the cause of Lucas's death in the previous life was him. This matter has always been a hidden danger hanging over my heart. I was eager to know the truth. After struggling for a moment, I said in a low voice, "All right, I'll find you now. Tell me the address." "My car is parked on the small road outside your yard. You will see it as soon as you come out." I looked into the yard, and among the greenery, there was a white car parked. The bridesmaid took my phone, and I couldn't get in touch with Lucas. "Kelly, if you come now, I'll tell you." "You know me. I never go back on my word." I gritted my teeth, pushed open the glass door, and walked towards the car. The hem of the wedding dress was very long, and I had to lift it with both hands, moving step by step. Joaquin put down the glass window and looked at me from afar. He looked the same, but his expression and demeanor had indeed changed, as if he were a different person. 5 years later, Joaquin had achieved success and was even more composed and steady. Just like now. I slowly walked a few meters towards the car, then suddenly stopped in my tracks. Joaquin slightly furrowed his brows, opened the car door, and waved at me. "Kelly, get in." I took a step back, suddenly turned around, and walked away briskly. "No, I can't go. I promised that man, no matter the circumstances, I would never leave him suddenly. He is very powerful. He is the chairman of the Fu group, but in front of me, he is just a fragile man who loves me to the point of losing his sanity." How he looks forward to this wedding. These days, whenever he sees the wedding invitation, he can't help but smile. When he hears others congratulate him, he feels joyful. He repeatedly examines pictures of the wedding venue, and even hired a special music team to arrange a song he likes for the background music. He occasionally sighs in confusion. "Kelly, am I really going to marry you?" I can no longer let him fall into doubts and panic about being abandoned by me. Nothing is more important than our wedding. Chapter 14. The wedding went smoothly. On stage, Lucas put the love diamond ring on my finger, his eyes red, as he reverently kissed the back of my hand. I was also in tears, grateful to the heavens. After a week of passionate newlywed life, on a sunny morning, facing the stunning rose field, I recounted the bizarre experience of my rebirth to Lucas. He sat in the sunlight, quietly listening. He did not interrupt me, nor did he express any doubts. After I finished speaking, I felt a bit anxious. "Lucas, do you trust me?" His brilliant gaze was fixed on me. I believe everything you say. I was a bit stunned. He smiled gently and said, "During this time, I have felt like I was dreaming. How could I suddenly have you? I often find it hard to believe, and I sometimes doubt whether something has gone wrong in this world. Otherwise, how could I be so lucky? You said that in our last life, we were only briefly married for a year, as indifferent as strangers. In fact, when I proposed the marriage, I was indeed prepared for this. I do have that diary, but ever since you came into my life, I haven't recorded anything in it. Writing in a diary was a way for me to express my emotions when they became overwhelming, a method taught to me by my therapist. It's such a pity that the version of me in that world ultimately didn't end up with you. He wasn't as lucky as I am, but I am grateful to him because he allowed you to see me. Emotions surged within me, and tears flowed uncontrollably. But he said you died, and I don't know how you died. I'm so scared. Lucas, let's go find Joaquin. No matter how much he wants, let's give it to him so he can tell us the truth." Lucas got up, walked to my side, and gently wiped away my tears. He then softly held me in his arms. For a long time, a somewhat ethereal voice came from above my head. "I think I know how I died." My body suddenly tensed. He soothingly stroked the top of my head and continued to speak. "I have always felt that I am an ominous person, rejected by my biological mother in childhood, and as I grew a little older, I suffered countless disdainful glances and bullying. After finding a way back to Fu home, I experienced even more coldness and ruthlessness among family members, deceit and treachery, and even life-threatening situations. The people around me have all left in extremely tragic ways. Sometimes I wonder if my existence is a mistake. I actually have no attachment to this world. The only thought I have is of you, Kelly. If it weren't for your unintentional appearance, I might have long since disappeared from this world. Even if I gained power and fame, I am painfully aware that all of this is just to allow me to stand in front of you like a person. My world exists because of you. Only you. I might be on the verge of suicide. Actually, I had a vague thought a long time ago. As long as you are still there and do not belong to anyone else, I have a reason to continue living. If one day you get married and spend the rest of your life with someone else, then that will be the moment I leave this world. I suppose the me from my previous life must have done just that. He calmly and openly laid bare his feelings. Speaking in a gentle tone, recounting the story of a man who loved in silence until death across lifetimes. I buried my face deep in his embrace, my shoulders shaking, unable to speak through my tears. Chapter 15. Sophia suddenly came to find me. In the underground parking lot, she blocked my way, her face pale and her frame emaciated. I lost my child. Joaquin forced me to have an abortion. I was taken aback. Joaquin was reborn, and he had 4 years of father-son bond with the child in Sophia's belly. How could he still force her to abort? Her eyes overflowed with pain as she continued. There was massive bleeding during the surgery, and my uterus was removed. I will never be able to be a mother again. I noticed something was off in her expression and just wanted to leave quickly. What do you want from me? She looked at me, her expression suddenly filled with confusion. Joaquin has become so strange. He ignores me now, and sometimes when he sees me, his gaze even carries hatred. But why does he hate me? Haven't I done enough for him? Did he fall under your spell? Celine, you are already married. I am in such a miserable state now. Having lost everything, I beg you, please don't compete with me for Joaquin, okay? As she said this and tried to pull my arm, I pushed her away forcefully and dodged. Sophia, I have had no relationship with Joaquin for a long time. Don't involve me in your matters with him. If you appear in front of me like this again, I will call the police immediately. After returning home, I told Lucas about this incident. After pondering for a moment, he said, perhaps something happened between Joaquin and Sophia in their past life. You are reborn after death. And it seems Joaquin is too. He looked serious. Celine, I need to investigate Joaquin's matter thoroughly. During this time, try not to go out. Starting tomorrow, I will arrange for 2 bodyguards for you. If you go to your dad's house, make sure to have the bodyguards accompany you. I nodded slightly. On Father's Day a week later, while I was walking with my dad in the neighborhood, I was drugged and fainted during the 1 minute he went home to get something. When I woke up, I found myself in a car, bound by a seatbelt, with Joaquin driving at high speed. Joaquin, are you crazy? I shouted angrily. Joaquin turned to smile at me, his voice gentle. Kelly, you're awake. I'm sorry. Just hang in there. We'll be there soon. Where are you taking me? I stared at him. He still spoke softly. I remember you like living in places with mountains and water. So I bought a house. You will definitely like it, even if you don't like it. It's fine, since I have been reborn. Making money is very easy. We can change houses anytime in the future. I looked at him coldly and said in a low voice, Joaquin, I am already married. Do you know you are breaking the law? He smiled slightly. We have both died once. So why live so cautiously? In my last life, I suffered because of that woman Sophia, who dragged me down for a lifetime. I don't care anymore. Kelly, only we are truly in love. I understand that you still hate me now, and that's okay. I will make it up to you in the future. I calmed down. Dad will report me missing and notify Lucas. Lucas will definitely find me. How did you die? I asked. Joaquin was silent for a moment. I was pushed off the 28th floor balcony by Sophia and fell to my death. I couldn't believe it. Weren't you in love? How could this happen? Joaquin shook his head, his voice calm. I don't love her. All these years of entanglement with her were due to my indecisiveness and my longing for that bit of family warmth. But I never expected it would cost me you. When I learned of your death, I nearly went insane. If it weren't for Sophia ruining my life, and if she hadn't shown those photos at the proposal, you wouldn't have died. I hated her so much at that moment. In a fit of rage, I choked her. When I was struggling, the child rushed over with a stick, and to avoid him, I was pushed down the stairs by Sophia in the chaos. After I finished listening, I took a while to digest it before finally speaking. So you hate Sophia and forced her to abort the child? That child was never meant to exist in this world. I came back to rectify this mistake from its roots. After a long silence, I finally asked that question. What about Lucas? How did he die? Joaquin glanced at me and said, they say he jumped off a cliff to commit suicide. I suddenly closed my eyes. This man actually did that, even though I know he is fine now. Thinking about how he gave up his 100 billion fortune in his past life, Walking alone to the cliff and jumping down without hesitation makes my heart ache unbearably. I couldn't hide my emotional turmoil and my eyes turned red. Joaquin's phone rang, and he pressed the speakerphone. A voice came from inside Sophia, and her tone was somewhat strange. Joaquin, I've been having the same dream lately, where a little boy keeps crying and calling me mommy. He says you are his father. He looks so pitiful when he cries, always asking us why we killed him. Joaquin's tone was icy. Sophia, I have no relationship with you anymore. That night, it was you who drugged me, which led to that child. You had your uterus removed. It was also an accident. Sophia's voice was mournful. Joaquin, why have you suddenly changed so much? Didn't you also like me? You said you always wanted a mother, wanted a sister, several times. I knew you also had feelings. Joaquin sternly interrupted her. Sophia, I have been more than fair to you. If you continue to cling to me, I won't hold back. Bang! The car was suddenly hit violently. I looked out the window in terror. Sophia was chasing in a red car. Her voice still came through the phone, eerie and terrifying. I have lost everything. Joaquin, you can't do this to me. I once had a lovely son, and it was you and that bitch Celine who ruined everything. You want to be together, but only if you go to hell. Bang bang. She crashed into it several more times as if she had gone mad. Joaquin gritted his teeth, gripping the steering wheel tightly. I looked out the window and suddenly felt a chill all over. The place where the car is currently driving is exactly the overpass where I died in a car accident in my previous life. A sense of powerless fate surged in my heart. I trembled all over, terrified to the extreme. Is it possible that the ending cannot be changed at all? A loud crash. The world in front of me spun wildly as the car was flipped over in high-speed traffic, crashing into the bridge pier. The rear of the car suddenly caught fire. A pungent smell of gasoline filled the air. In my blurry vision, I saw Joaquin in the driver's seat, covered in blood and motionless. My body was strapped with a belt. My legs were stuck tight, and I couldn't move at all. People on the road were shouting in panic, but no one dared to come over. It seems like there are still people alive inside. I looked desperately at the crowd in the distance, murmuring to myself, Lucas, you must live on well. The blood on my forehead obscured my eyes, and in a sea of red, I seemed to see a tall figure rushing towards me. The car could explode at any moment. It's hopeless. That woman's lower body is stuck. Young man, don't risk another life. I saw Lucas's face. He crouched beside me, calmly assessing my situation. I tried a few movements, but the seat wouldn't budge. The fire behind me grew larger, and gasoline slowly spread towards the flames. I cried out, Lucas, it's impossible to save me. You should go. He gently blinked his eyelashes and smiled at me. Kelly, don't be afraid. I will stay with you. After speaking, he simply sat down on the ground. The crowd around erupted in exclamations. Is that person trying to throw their life away? If they can't be saved, shouldn't they run away quickly? He can't be. He plans to die for love. Heavens. Lucas looked calm, gently holding me. Kelly, there's blood on your forehead. Does it hurt a lot? I was too weak to say anything. With red-rimmed eyes, he looked at me with deep concern for a moment. He carefully lowered his head, kissing my forehead, my face, my lips, accompanied by a soft sigh. Kelly, I love you. Till death do us part. We held each other tightly in the great fire. Chapter 16. The butterfly effect has taken effect. At a critical moment, a fire truck returning from a call drove over the overpass. Less than a minute after we were rescued, the car exploded with a roar. Joaquin passed away on the way to the hospital. Sophia survived, but she was struck in the brain and is now blind, and she will face upcoming legal repercussions. Chapter 17. I injured my leg lightly and have been lying in the VIP ward of the hospital for a week. I didn't let Lucas step into the ward. You are so indifferent to your own life, saying you don't want it. How can I rely on you in the future? If you don't cherish yourself, I won't cherish you either. I am very angry. He almost died alongside me for nothing. Thinking of this, I can't help but want to hit him on the head a few times. He stood outside the door, looking sad and helpless. Kelly, Don't be angry anymore. The doctor said you need to rest. Being too emotional is not good. I kept a cold face and didn't look at him. He just stood by the door, not moving. After a long while, he suddenly let out a low, muffled groan. I looked up, suspiciously at him. What's wrong with you? He frowned slightly. My prosthetic limb actually can't stand for too long. You never mentioned it before. In the past, I was used to holding it in, but you said I should take care of myself, so I thought it would be better to say it out loud. I pressed my lips tightly together, glancing at him once, then again. Come in and sit down. The corners of his lips curved up, and he immediately stepped in, sitting on my bed. I narrowed my eyes at him. I let you in to sit on the sofa. Who told you to sit on my bed? He rubbed his forehead and shook his head, saying, sofa. Can't what? Can't kiss you. In the next second, he pressed over, fiercely capturing my lips and tongue. That was originally just a kiss. Later, I don't know how it went in another direction, becoming uncontrollable. I asked him between breaths, didn't you say I should rest quietly? He continued his movements, answering my questions. Moderate exercise is also beneficial for relaxation of body and mind. Is this still appropriate? Madam, I've endured for many days. Please understand. How long should I understand? It will be soon. The sky gradually darkened. Inside the window, love flows freely between the lovers. Outside the window, the bright night sky suddenly sparkled, bursting forth with several colorful fireworks. I headed straight for the twinkling stars at the horizon. It is indeed the most beautiful scenery in the world.